911, what is your emergency?
Hello? Fucking hello, man. My girlfriend's fucking in the bathroom. She's in the bathroom. Come on. She's in the bathroom. Come on.
I need to know something with the address on it so we can get it out. Sir, I need the address so I can get it out.
At 3:39 a.m. on September 20th, 2015, the Sunrise Police Department received a frantic 911 call from Fidel Lopez. Speaking in shock and distress, he told the dispatcher that his 31-year-old girlfriend was in critical condition, urging for immediate help. Once they confirmed his location, officers rushed to the small apartment the couple shared. What they stepped into was nothing short of a slaughterhouse. Blood painted the walls, pooled on the floor, and soaked into the shattered furniture. Objects had been smashed and thrown, broken glass scattered across the floor, and deep gashes torn into the drywall. The apartment looked like a war zone, with signs of a violent, frenzied struggle visible in every corner. And amidst the chaos was Maria Nemeth, Fidel's girlfriend. Her lifeless body lay in a pool of blood. In today's episode, we'll explore the devastating case of Maria Nemeth. Her death was not only heartbreaking, but also horrifying for those who witnessed it. So be warned, as we will discuss the gruesome details that will leave you baffled by the unimaginable cruelty of humanity. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe to stay updated on our latest true crime stories. 31-year-old Maria Nemeth was the youngest of 3 siblings in a close-knit family, originally from Peru. Growing up, she was known for her kind heart, infectious laughter, and determination that set her apart. Maria always dreamed of a brighter future, one where she could have a happy family and a stable job. Maria met Fidel Lopez at a club, and the two immediately clicked. Fresh out of an 8-year marriage, Maria was ready for something new, while Fidel, who was living with his mother and 2 children at the time, was also seeking a fresh start. They quickly became a couple, and their relationship progressed rapidly. At the time, Maria worked as the leasing manager at an apartment complex, while Fidel worked as a mechanic at a truck stop in nearby Davie, Florida. Both were working hard to make ends meet, and their growing relationship sparked hopes of a future together. Less than a week before the incident, Maria and Fidel moved into apartment 308 at 1630 Northwest 128th Drive in Sunrise, Florida. The apartment was sparsely furnished, with many essentials still missing. They used boxes as a table, and their closet was nearly empty. Their life together had just begun, and no one could have predicted that it would soon come to a violent and unimaginable end. On the night of the incident, Fidel had gotten off work and met up with Maria, who had also gone into work for a couple of hours. She fixed a meal for them of chicken, beans, and rice. After finishing that, they went and visited his mother in Miami. They then came back and went to a Chili's restaurant near their apartment. The two each had a margarita and then shared a third one. Before heading home, they then went to a nearby ABC liquor store, bought a bottle of 1800 Reposado tequila, and their trip around town ended at 10 p.m. It was reported that the couple shared more shots of tequila at home and eventually became intimate. However, the night took a dark turn when they got into a fight, and by the time first responders arrived, it was already too late. Fidel Lopez was found in a state of panic, crying hysterically, while his girlfriend lay lifeless on the bathroom floor. Her lower body was naked and covered in blood. There were clear signs of severe injuries to her lower abdomen and genital area. Detective Piper, who was at the scene, later described it as incredibly gruesome and hard to witness. The pain Maria must have felt in her final moments is unimaginable. A further examination of the apartment revealed a disturbing scene of violent struggle and an explosive outburst of rage. Objects were thrown, walls were smashed, and a sliding glass door was broken into pieces. There was blood on the walls, in the hallway, and on the doors of the closet and bathroom. To the police's horror, chunks of what appeared to be human flesh were also found inside the closet. What happened here was a scene straight out of the worst nightmare. During the initial exchange between Detective Piper and Fidel at the crime scene, Fidel claimed that Maria had collapsed during rough sex with him. However, this version of events didn't align with the severity of the injuries or the amount of blood present at the scene. The detective then asked if Fidel would be willing to speak with investigators about what had happened. According to the report, Fidel voluntarily agreed and accompanied the officers to the Sunrise police station. At 7:40 a.m., Fidel was brought into an interrogation room and informed of his Miranda rights. He told detectives that he couldn't read English but would understand if they read the rights aloud to him. To ensure he understood his rights clearly, a Spanish-language version of the form was provided. Fidel then signed a waiver of those rights, and the interrogation began. At the beginning of the interview, Fidel appeared nervous, but was open and cooperative with the detectives. He calmly walked them through the events of the night, describing what he thought was a fun and romantic date with Maria. After returning home, he and his girlfriend started drinking, taking several shots of tequila and dancing together. At that point, everything seemed normal. However, what he revealed next about Maria's request of him would turn the investigation into something far more horrific. Fidel reluctantly implied that Maria had requested he engage in risky and disturbing sexual activities. He agreed to her request, but claimed that his memory of the exact events was hazy due to the alcohol they had consumed. And at some point, they had to stop having intercourse when Maria started feeling uneasy and needed to go to the bathroom. Fidel then claimed that he stepped outside for a cigarette and admitted to breaking the glass door, though he again stated that he didn't remember why he did it. The only thing he remembered clearly was that after his cigarette break, he returned to the bathroom to check on Maria. It was then that he found her sitting on the bathroom floor, struggling to breathe. Fearing for her life, he grabbed the phone and called 911. Fidel's version of events had several inconsistencies, and the detectives believed it wasn't that he couldn't remember, but rather that he was trying to hide something. They pressed him for more details, specifically focusing on the time gap between when they began having sex and when he found her lying in the bathroom. In response to the detectives' questions, Fidel admitted that they engaged in rough activities without using condoms. He acknowledged that they went far beyond traditional sex, engaging in acts too disturbing to describe. Out of respect for the victim, we'll keep it brief, but it was clear that the actions were extremely dangerous and violent. However, according to Fidel, it was Maria who had requested these acts, and he only did what she asked him to do. He also made sure to tell the investigators that she was conscious the entire time. When the detectives asked him where the sexual activity took place, Fidel said it started in the closet and then moved to the bathroom. However, he claimed that the alcohol made it difficult for him to remember exactly what had happened. Seeing that Fidel wasn't going to provide more details, the detectives shifted the conversation to the argument they supposedly had earlier in the evening. However, Fidel denied having any argument, stating they were just listening to music and drinking shots together. Although he denied having an argument, he confessed feeling a bit down when Maria teased him, saying he hadn't satisfied her. The detective pressed Fidel about the damaged wall and broken glass, but Fidel struggled to recall when or why the damage had occurred. He insisted the house had been intact before that night. He eventually admitted that if any damage had occurred, it was likely caused by him. He couldn't understand why he had acted that way, explaining that something might have triggered him, but the drinking made it hard for him to remember. Then came the moment when Fidel's own words betrayed him. Despite claiming he wasn't mad at his girlfriend, Fidel mentioned Maria's ex, suggesting that she might have brought up her ex-husband during their conversation. However, he denied that it had affected him and insisted that he didn't know why he broke the door. The detectives could tell that Fidel was becoming increasingly emotional, and he began revealing more excessive details that he shouldn't have. Seizing the moment, they returned to the point when Maria was close to death, calmly asking Fidel when he realized she had died and what he had been doing at that time. They kept the conversation casual, giving him the space to express himself freely, all while waiting for the moment when Fidel Lopez would make a mistake. In this part of the interview, Fidel describes the moments after he found Maria unresponsive. He says he tried to perform CPR, though he didn't know how to do it, and she wasn't breathing at all. He expressed fear and desperation, waiting for the police to arrive, and recalls screaming and trying to revive her while lying on the floor. The detective then asks if Fidel remembers hitting or punching Maria during their argument earlier that night. Fidel denies it, stating he never physically struck her, either during the argument or in the past. He insists that nothing physical happened between them, just an argument. As the interrogation continued, the police increased the pressure. They pointed out to Fidel that the amount of blood found in his apartment could not have been the result of rough sex. With no signs of another person in the house or evidence of a break-in, they made it clear that it was highly likely he was the one responsible. Subtly, they targeted his guilt and conscience, determined to bring closure to Maria's brutal death.
Do you love this girl?
Of course, babe.
Okay. Would you do anything to hurt her?
Of course not.
Okay. But you did.
The injuries that were caused to her, she didn't do them to herself.
Of course not.
And there was no one else in the apartment.
It was me.
It was you.
The detectives then described Maria's horrific injuries, explaining that she had been mutilated from the inside. Her gut, anus, and private area were torn apart, either by hand or another object. The overwhelming amount of blood found at the crime scene seemed to confirm the detectives' suspicions. However, Fidel offered his own explanation. He admitted that, considering the injuries Maria had sustained, it was possible he had caused them. He acknowledged applying something to her, but insisted she had asked him to do it. He firmly stated that he hadn't forced her into anything, trying to justify his actions with his own version of events. Fidel stubbornly insisted that during the rough physical activity, he kept asking Maria if it hurt and whether she wanted him to stop. Despite earlier claiming he couldn't remember the details of their encounter, he now stated that at one point, he told her she was bleeding, but she insisted it didn't hurt. Attempting to avoid responsibility, he blamed everything on Maria, claiming he only did what she asked him to do. However, the police weren't convinced.
This is not a case of just rough sex. Yeah. Okay? This is not a case of rough sex. There's blood everywhere. Everywhere.
Listen, just tell us.
I'm just doing whatever she was telling me to do.
She wasn't telling you to do that. Because listen, Fidel, the amount of pain that she would have been in would have been unbearable. There's injuries inside of her that need to be explained.
Fidel stuck to his story, but the detectives slowly cornered him, laying out all the details that contradicted his version of events. They forced him to face the truth and confront what he had done to Maria. They questioned his love for her, pointing out that no one who truly loved another could do something like this, and that Maria and her family deserved closure from him. As the pressure mounted, Fidel began to crack. The detectives told him he needed to come clean, that they knew more had happened than he was admitting. It reached the point where he knew he couldn't talk his way out of the horrible crime he had committed. Fidel Lopez eventually opened up. He told the detectives that Maria had mentioned wanting to go back to Peru to visit her mother. While she was away, he wouldn't be able to use her car to commute for work, and that angered him, leading him to break things around the apartment. He said he didn't know how they ended up in the closet, but then they began to have sex and made peace. However, it was around this time that things started to spiral out of control. During their intercourse, Maria called him by her ex-husband's name. She said it a second time, and he lost it. From there, Fidel described a terrible series of assaults on Maria, using both his own body and implements found around the house. After he finished, he raged through the apartment, breaking things, and then stopped to take a smoke break. He went back inside, stripped off his bloodied clothes, cleaned up, and put on a fresh set of clothes before finally calling 911.
I can tell you right now, if I'm having sex with my wife and she calls out another man's name, I'm gonna get pissed off. Okay? It's human nature, dude. Don't.
This is not human, man. I just took her life. I don't mean to, but I did it.
because you got enraged.
Right. Are you sorry for what you did?
Huh?
Are you sorry for what you did?
I'm sorry? Boss, man, what do you think?
With Fidel Lopez finally confessed to his crime, along with the overwhelming forensic evidence that aligned with the final story Fidel had shared with investigators, the truth about Maria Nemeth's murder was finally brought to light. Ultimately, Fidel Lopez was arrested and charged with the brutal murder of his girlfriend, Maria Nemeth. His trial began after months of investigation and forensic work, which uncovered damning evidence, including blood spatter and signs of a violent struggle in the apartment. A medical examiner confirmed the severity of Maria's injuries, which aligned with the rough sex Fidel claimed to have with her, indicating deliberate and extreme violence. In the initial stages of his trial, Fidel's defense team tried to have his confession and interrogation thrown out, arguing that he didn't fully understand his Miranda rights due to his limited English proficiency. However, the judge ruled that there was enough evidence to prove Fidel understood his rights and the questions being asked. The motion to suppress was dismissed. Facing the possibility of the death penalty due to the heinous nature of the crime, Fidel Lopez opted for a plea deal to avoid execution. On July 14, 2017, he pleaded guilty to first-degree murder and sexual battery before Judge Iona Holmes in the Fort Lauderdale courthouse. On August 3, 2017, as part of the plea agreement, Fidel was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The deal also spared him from the death penalty and barred him from appealing his conviction. In the end, Fidel Lopez expressed regret and remorse for the death of his girlfriend, but it was all too late. Under the influence of alcohol and driven by jealousy, he became a monster he could no longer recognize. Fidel's actions devastated both families, and while Maria's family found some measure of closure through his conviction, the trauma of her brutal death left a lasting scar. That brings us to the end of today's episode. What are your thoughts on this heartbreaking case? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime stories. Until next time, stay safe.